Bardzo dziękuję za przybycie na kolejny z wykładów z cyklu Mistrzowie Architektury, organizowany przez Katowicki Oddział SARP-u. Może zacznę nietypowo, bo zacznę od podziękowań. Chciałam bardzo podziękować właśnie Katowickiemu Oddziałowi SARP-u za to, że organizuje te wykłady już od bardzo długiego czasu. Chciałam również podziękować OSSie, Studenckiej Organizacji Architektów, którzy w tym samym czasie prowadzą warsztaty i rzeczywiście nasza współpraca bardzo dobrze się układa na tą chwilę i udało nam się zgromadzić taką rzeszę ludzi również dzięki ich wkładowi. Chciałam również podziękować sponsorom, bez których to wydarzenie by się nie odbyło, firmie Libet, firmie Kobu Design i firmie Max Fleece. Bardzo dziękuję za pomoc, za współpracę i mam nadzieję, że dalej będzie to tak wyglądać jak do tej pory. Bardzo dziękuję również muzeum, które zgodziło się udostępnić nam tę salę. Mam nadzieję, że w przyszłości uda nam się wytargować wręcz większą salę, bo rzeczywiście jest to spektakularne, ile osób się tu pojawiło. I bardzo chciałam również podziękować. I would like to thank you very much the Master of Architecture of this cycle, Bernard Chipin, who arrived and not only is going to give the lecture, but he's also been here for 1 week, being a tutor for the OSA workshop. We will go into more thanking and more również, przepraszam. Kolejne podziękowania nastąpią może po prezentacji naszych sponsorów.
No to aż trudno nie skorzystać z tej okazji, nie zaprosić wszystkich do wstąpienia do SARP-u. Widzę dużo młodych twarzy, więc wszyscy, którzy skończyli dostali tytuł inżyniera, są w SARP-ie i decyzją zarządu są w tym SARP-ie za darmo do momentu, kiedy obronią tytuł magistra i minie 2 lata. Więc w moim przypadku od 3. roku do zrobienia dyplomu to było chyba z 5 lat, więc naprawdę długo można nie płacić składek, a nie o składki nam chodzi. Chodzi nam o wasze zaangażowanie i wsparcie, bo teraz płynnie przechodząc do dzisiejszego takiej bardzo przyjemnej uroczystości, bo mamy tutaj dwoje ludzi, którzy, jeden jak Wojtek prowadził przez 12 lat Mistrzów Architektury, zrobił chyba 42 wykłady i myślę, że należą mu się za to brawa. Gratulujemy bardzo. Ja jeszcze odłożę moment. Odłożę kwiatki i tutaj taki męski załącznik graficzny, który ma wygrawerowaną na tej oprawce tego wnętrza ukrytego 12 lat, więc myślę, że te 12 lat Wojtek będzie smakował w krótszym czasie, ale gratulacje jeszcze raz.
I może jeszcze ja w imieniu młodego pokolenia bardzo dziękuję za to, że zrozumiałeś nasze pragnienie wiedzy, pragnienie obcowania z architektami i z architekturą z zagranicy. Bardzo, bardzo dziękuję, że podjąłeś się do tego trudnego zadania.
Jestem w szoku. Jestem w szoku.
Teraz to trudne zadanie, to jest chyba, nie można sobie wyobrazić lepszego początku i lepszego zakończenia prowadzenia tego cyklu wykładów, no bo takiej frekwencji nie mieliśmy nigdy. Więc i to jest podsumowanie działalności Wojtka i otwarcie działalności Pauliny, której pragnę wręczyć kwiatki po to, żeby jej sukces był dalej taki i się rozwijał. Mamy w Katowicach parę większych sal, więc jak będziemy mieć stale taką frekwencję, to myślę, że spokojnie możemy się przenosić i eksplorować różne miejsca. Tych miejsc chyba jest parę fajnych do zobaczenia w Katowicach. Działamy między innymi w stowarzyszeniu, żeby tych miejsc było jak najwięcej, a właśnie Wojtek nie ochrzanił i bardzo dobrze zrobił.
Chciałem podziękować. Jestem w szoku, chyba pierwszy raz dostałem tyle rzeczy. Także nie, tak naprawdę chciałem tylko przekazać jakby kuratorstwo cyklu wykładów Paulinie Gorąkie brawa, proszę. Bo faktycznie taka zmiana jest pokoleniowa, lekka i bardzo dobra. I bardzo się cieszę z tego, że tyle osób nadal przychodzi i to tak fajnie funkcjonuje. I to, co Paulina powiedziała, pamiętam, taki był też głód wiedzy, co się dzieje za granicą. Jeszcze wtedy to była Unia Europejska tam, a my nie. I stąd jakby powstał ten pomysł, żeby ściągać wykładowców i robić wykłady. Okazało się to takim, no można powiedzieć, jakimś sukcesem. I nawet pamiętam, jak kiedyś Andrzej Duda powiedział, że to będzie fragment historii architektury Śląska, że przez tyle lat tylu dobrych wykładowców przyjeżdża i tyle osób może chodzić i się uczyć. To właśnie szczególnie chodziło o młode pokolenia, które tak licznie odwiedzały właśnie wszystkie wykłady. A ja ze swojej strony mogę powiedzieć, że to jest chyba taki fajny przykład, że nie wszystko trzeba robić dla kasy. To był pomysł taki właśnie, żeby to robić społecznie, tak, zresztą SARP cały tak działa. I zawsze tak mi się zdawało, że tak mi moi starsi mówili, jacyś różni ludzie, że jak coś się robi tak z potrzeby serca, to zawsze ta rzecz wraca. I nawet mogę sam z autopsji powiedzieć, że z jednym z wykładowców zrobiliśmy jeden fajny, duży projekt w Polsce, a Tomek Bombski, który ostatnio prowadził wykłady, już siedzi w Anglii i jeden z wykładowców zaproponował właśnie pracę przy jakimś ciekawym projekcie, Ian Ritchie. Także zapraszamy serdecznie w szeregi SARP-u i wszelką pomoc przy tych wykładach Paulinie. Dziękuję jeszcze raz wszystkim.
Dziękuję również.
Wyrwałem Wojtkowi mikrofon, bo chciałbym podziękować wszystkim sponsorom, którzy nas wsparli, dzięki którym można tą mistrz architektury może się właściwie zaprezentować, ale mam nadzieję, że docenią ilość i to, dzięki czemu SARP się utrzymuje, będziemy mogli bez problemu przełożyć na następne pieniądze. Nie bójmy się tego słowa sponsorskie, ale należą im się duże brawa i myślę, że tutaj brawa dla wszystkich sponsorów, którzy przez te 12 lat nam pomagali. No to czekamy na zmianę, bo my już jesteśmy starzy albo coraz starsi i no, musicie nas zastąpić, więc wygryźcie nas, wywalcie, przejmijcie całą tą schedę po nas, więc oddaję Paulinie głos. Ona opowie o następnym wykładzie, może 2 słowa, który będzie i życzymy powodzenia.
So I think now we start with the main course of the day. Bernard Chipin, our Master of Architects, Master of Architecture that came today. He's not only a young and successful architect, but he's very experienced also. He's a leading architect for MVDRV, and he also works for them as head of development for France. But he also has his own practice, MLBS Architects, which has been very successfully published recently, very well known already. So I hope that his work and his project and his ideas will speak up for themselves. So please welcome, with a big round of applause, Bernard Chipin.
Thank you for being there. Thank you for coming for the lecture. Thank you for inviting me. And thank you for inviting me to the OSA workshop as well. I will present quickly, but really quickly, the office. The office is in Rotterdam. Here you can see the bird view. Actually, the office was a previous print office. So basically, it's for architects, it's big open space. It's a bit cold in winter, a bit too warm in summer, but okay. So you see a big open space. This is maybe the best part of the office. It's the lunch table. Because maybe you don't know, but Dutch people have like 20-minute breaks for lunch. And we just have lunch, everyone in one table, in one go. We have as well, MVRDV has also the office in Shanghai since already 5 years. About the project, it's, we can say worldwide. We have projects everywhere. I won't describe right now the project, will be later on. And we do some research and education and a lot of publishing. You can see some of the book. I won't talk yet about projects. I want to make it a bit more specific. I want to talk about quality of life. It's what about quality of life? You can see, like in the society, the development were like quite various. Indeed, we can see that some of the cities are really poor and dirty, like in Lahore, in Pakistan. Some of them are wealthy, but still dirty. I don't know if you've been in Beijing, but you cannot breathe. Too much pollution. And others are wealthy and clean, like in Copenhagen. So basically, I would like to strike a question. It's what do you think, or do you think, or don't you think that people want and deserve a good quality of life? But can we provide it to everyone? That's the real question. Wow. Scary. Actually, let's have a look at the eco footprint. I will explain you maybe for the one who don't know what's an eco footprint. But if we will have the same eco footprint as USA, we won't need like not one globe, but not two, but not three, but not four, but 4.5 Earths. So basically, if everyone in the world will have the same standard of living as American people, one globe won't be enough. And we just have one. Boom. And there is no plan B. That's the problem. This is a sad birthday. It's the 20th of August, just when everyone is on holidays, having fun on the beach. We have also the birthday, what we call the Earth's Overshoot Day. It's the day when the world starts consuming its natural resources. Crack. So, one important question. It's, how should we behave to provide good quality of life facing two factors, the population growing and the reduction of our resources? Because one moment won't be enough resources for everyone. And this won't decrease because the urban population is getting bigger and bigger. So the city nowadays should be more prepared for it. We can see that in 2030, almost 60% of the people will live in cities. And we see that the cities are getting bigger. We can see the mega cities now. We don't talk about countries. We talk about big cities. And now we can even compare cities to countries. We can compare Paris with Netherlands. So basically, one fact is we need to be more responsible. But does it mean that I have to change as well my actual way of living for less comfort? I don't think you want as well. Because if we look at the map of welfare, we notice that the city having the best welfare are also the city having the worst eco-footprint. Except one. This one. This is the diagram about comparing basically the cities with the best eco-footprint, or the worst, and the human development. So basically the city having the best eco-footprint, it's Cuba. But that's my question. Do you want to be like Cuba? Of course it's needed to be more responsible. We have to. But nobody wants to go for any restriction. We don't want to go for less. Less is more. Nah, less is not more. We have to be more ambitious. So of course we have to be responsible, but you have to be as well ambitious. And go for more. I want more. I still want to have meat. I still want to take the plane. I still want to do many things. I don't want to have to be too local. So basically, let's be more responsible and more ambitious. This maybe should be the motto for every design, every urban planning. But how to do it, I don't know. What about Poland? This is a funny map. I really love this map. It's the map of happiness. And you see Poland. Is Poland sad? A bit more than France, but like Japan, but not like Russia, hopefully. So it's good. Why you're not super happy as well? Is it linked with your quality of life? Let's have a look at the Mercer. Mercer, it's kind of, I don't know, a statistic office making a ranking of cities in the world. And this is really funny to see because it's based on these criteria: politique, economy, socio-cultural, health, school, education, public services, transport, recreation, goods, housing, and natural climate. So if we look at this ranking, I just found the 2012. I don't have the 2014. I had to pay for it. So 2012 is free, but it's not so different anyway. What will be the first city with the best quality of life in the world? Paris? No. No, the first city having the best quality of life, it's Vienna. The second one, Zurich. And Auckland. Bon. Nice, I don't know. And then you look at Amsterdam. Well, it's not so far. Good score. And you see Paris. Wow, 30. And you see New York. Everyone wants to live in New York, but in New York, the quality of life is not so good, apparently. It's better to live in Zurich than New York. Bon. And then the first Polish city I found, Warsaw, 84. It's not so bad. You have much more city behind you. So I can say that Warsaw, I went a bit deeper. I wanted to know what's the score of Katowice. And finally, Katowice and Warsaw are not so far in quality of life. Can be comparable. So let's say that Katowice is ranking 84 as well. So actually, you have a better quality of life than Rio. Better quality of life than Moscow. It's nice. And then St. Petersburg, beautiful city, but okay. Much more. So, according to this statistic, it seems that the quality of life, it's okay. But, there's always a but. But the population is decreasing. Why? Why since the last 10, 15 years and even more, the population is decreasing in Katowice? I don't know why. Because it looks great from the top. It's nice. It's a nice picture, no? I like it. It's maybe of the conurbation, and that's the problem. I get the feeling that the city gets bigger, you have a collection of cities connecting each other, and what's the problem? This has an impact because people are living far and working far from their own place. So then this has an impact. I want it as many impact, anyway. It has a many impact because cities that are sprawling, for many reasons, it's not so good. For pollution reason, for time traveling, and also you start appearing this kind of ghetto. Like working district, living district, leisure district, and you always take your car. So basically, what's the role of the architect? What should we do? How can we act to change it? We have to develop strategies, and we're good for it. We have to make the city more attractive, and we have good designers, so it's good. And our design, our project should increase the quality of life. It's really important. And this, at this moment, we will bring back the population. So there's four, from my point of view, there's four strategies. I would like to explain you that first, the city, I think, should be more dense. Density is not bad. Sometimes people say, but you want to put towers everywhere. No, density is not high building density. It's more bring people closer. Density is to intensify the city. It's to make better social connection and to avoid the urban sprawl. Another strategy to reach is to have a city more comfortable. More comfortable means to be more sustainable, means to be more autonomous, and to be maybe more green, and to have better climate. The city should be more adaptable as well. I will explain you. But more adaptable, it's also cities that it's more flexible, it's more participative. It has a better evolution. And it's a city that can be reversible, so can change easily. And also the city should be more, should get a bigger diversity, to have a mix of generation and to have a high concentration of amenities. So, what could be the strategy for intensification? Intensification is to bring people closer and to make the city more alive. We made a study in Paris. This I want to show. It's what we call the mutable spaces in Paris. Because we started doing a research on Grand Paris since 2009. And the first reaction of people was like, there's no space in Paris. You cannot build. It's full. So where can we build? Outside. Far from the city center. Far, you don't have even public transport, so you have to go by car. And then you go so far that when you want to come back in Paris, you cannot park, you cannot move. And we start the study by, okay, there's no space in Paris, but let me have a look. And we look at the map of Paris. And we see that there's many space, actually. If you look at all the landscape, first, we have water. water can be a potential site to bring people to live. There's many places in Paris where there's agricultural fields that are not used. We can use them. The infrastructure. The infrastructure, what can we do? We can also use them as a potential site for our project. Maybe some of you knows already that we can build on top of infrastructure. We can build close to infrastructure. So this can be a potential site. Also the existing building. You know, the city basically should grow on itself. You know, we should have a stratification on the city. And then can we use maybe the public building to be a potential site as well to bring more program? So basically this is, at the end of the study, we spent a couple of months doing this map. And this is what you see in dark gray. It's the space in Paris, actually. So we have space. We can densify Paris. So we made, for this intensification strategy, we made kind of catalog. We like to make catalogs. We like to see how far we can go on intensification. So I will show you now a series of examples. I think it's interesting to see. Some of them are from MVRDV and MNBS, others from other good architects, other references. So I think I open up a bit more the field of references. So about inside, I like this picture. It's maybe look too utopic, but it's a picture from James Wine. And what James Wine wanted to say with this picture, it's saying basically you can make collective building with the quality of the individual houses. So, of course, everyone wants to live in city. Everyone wants to enjoy all the activities, all the amenities of a dense city. But everyone wants his own garden, his own pavilion, his own place to live. I don't know if it's good or not, but the idea behind it is good. Can we make more individual projects into a collectiveness? Another project in Rotterdam is this. And you have a lot. You have a lot of warehouse. You have a lot of industrial building from your history. And those buildings can be reused. You already start. It's good. This is the Lloyd Hotel in Amsterdam. It was an existing building previously. This building was used as a buffer zone for immigration. So basically, immigrants were coming by boat, going in this building, being checked by a doctor, and coming in Netherlands. After the time, this building then became a jail. And now it's an hotel. So it's funny that a building, the shape didn't change, but the activity inside changed. Changed with the city. This is inside. To build on top of existing. I like this picture. It's in Paris, after war project. It's basically a building with individual housing on top. This is an echo. So it's quite good. I like the reference. I like the idea to say we have collective project and individual housing on top with little garden. It's cute. Another project from MVRDV, we call it the Blue House. It's quite clear. Huh? It's also the first answer of how we can make the city more dense, because if you make the city more dense, we avoid this urban sprawl. I hope in the future will be much more in this area. You see. maybe more crazy. In Singapore, on top of a building, we can imagine something else. Happened already in Rotterdam. They placed this office building on top of the existing building in Rotterdam. So it's good. I like this wedding between as well new and old. Cities are not museums. This is important to know. Cities should change. I like this one. We call it Haussmann Solidaire. It's in Paris. It was in the research of Grand Paris. Basically, a fact in Paris, it's missing. We have to build for the next 30 years 65,000 housing per year for the next 30 years. And actually in Paris, we don't do 65, we do 35. So every year we're missing 30,000 housing for the city. The city needs it. Why? We cannot build so much because Paris, it's overprotected. Paris, it's acting like a museum. You cannot build anything in Paris. But then we look at one data. We took only Haussmann, and we say if we add one floor on top of Haussmann, and this we can do it. Since 1901, there is a law saying that you can add one floor to the existing building in Paris. If we do this, just adding one floor, you solve the problem in Paris. Yeah, I'll show you one picture, because Paris, it's really dense, but you don't feel. Buildings are not so high as well. And you can say, up, one floor. You don't see, up, up. Ha. Or maybe this, another building. This is public building, so belong to the city. So the city can act directly. Up. Maybe on top of a school. Maybe it's nice. I like this one as well. Place de la République. You can even do it over the night. No one will notice it. Because if you have this is the existing situation. Tac, you come in the morning. No one see it. But then you gain one floor. So the Parisian people always, grumpy, no. No one will see it. Another reference, Hôtel Saint-Aignan. It's also, here you see, I don't know if you see, the old building and the new. And I like this one. Actually, on the right, it's not so bad, honestly. On top of infrastructure. This is good because we have one of the best buildings in Rotterdam. So I have many references from Rotterdam because I'm living as well in Rotterdam. But one of the best buildings in Rotterdam is this one. It's built on top of the street. I love it because we lose space, basically. We put a big street and we don't put in the volume on top. It's not used. We can use it. More extreme, maybe in Tokyo. It's this building on top of High Speedway. You know, in Tokyo, there's no space, so they're always more creative. They find more solutions. This I love. Yona Friedman. Oh, it's super utopic project, but it's basically Yona Friedman wanted to make an extra layer, actually, on top of Paris, what he called the spatial city. Smaller, you know, like this was a collage we did for the Grand Paris. We decided to bring more density along the infrastructure. So I don't only build on top of infrastructure, I build also close to infrastructure. Why? Because infrastructure connects you to the rest of the city. So you have good connection with the transport system. So one of the pictures of the existing street, Speedway, why not? I'm still dreaming, but it's good. It's good to dream. It's good to see, to go further, to see if it's possible to do it. And this was maybe a crazy one. It was an old building And the client wanted to make an extension of this building, but there were no space. And we didn't want to put something on top, so we said, okay, let's make something underneath. So we left the building. We didn't get the commission at the end, but you have some examples as well. In London it's the same. It's really hard to have more density, so people start digging on the ground. And you have this is one of the villa. Well, okay, it's a villa and it's chic, but almost it's like the iceberg. And the part underground it's bigger than the one on the surface. This one as well, it's an example of building under the city. It's the Les Halles. It's one of the biggest shopping malls in Paris, with the biggest intermodal node in Paris, with all the network, all the subway, RER, train coming there. I look also at this map. This is map of Montreal. So basically, it's so cold in Montreal that you have, in summer, you have the city, and in winter, you have a kind of city underground. You know, like all the buildings are linked between each other. And this is a utopic reference of Paul Mémon. He wanted to make a building under the river, or in the river. In this project, so utopia are not bad, you know, are not bad because can give inspiration. And this project gives inspiration for Les Halles in Paris. Really bad picture. But this is in Euralille. It's actually the architect council there in Lille. It was built under a bridge, close to the train station. So actually you have really good connection. You have the building of Jean Nouvel on the left, shopping mall, everything, and you have this building. So like this, because also architects show that there is space in city and this space can be used, and actually there is quality. Another one from Philippe Gazot. It's basically an extension of the museum underground. So you see from the public space, you don't really see, you keep it open, but then of course underground you have the extension of the museum. Another one, it's colonization. This is a village we did, we call it Pampus Arbor. It was all built on the water. Actually, Dutch people are really good on it. You know, they know how to gain space, gain surface on the water. This one, I like it as well. It's in Nouvelle-Orléans. You know what happened in Nouvelle-Orléans when you get the big flow and all the city out of the city was under the water. And for economical reason, they didn't want to make a bigger deck to protect the city. So basically, they just fix a rule. They say, okay, no, this city is not livable anymore, or some part of the city, because you have the risk that the flow is coming back. But then you shouldn't make rules like this. You should tell architects, please think project that can resist to a water flow. And they were this competition, they asked architect, please make individual housing that can be safe from water flow. There were 1,000 projects. And this is some proposal. We say, okay, we have the classic one. We can make one, it can be floating, one can be tilt. So piece of the place, it's not in the water. One with ramp, one with lift. And one can be bent. So of course you have like just a lobby in the water, but the living room, the bedroom are not in the water. So it's fine. I mean, then after a few hours. This, you know, the Tokyo Bay, there's no space. Now they're really thinking to, because they don't touch the mountains, so now they're going to the sea. Almer, aux Pays-Bas, master plan. Alors, Almer, you should know, couple of years ago was just water. And Dutch are really good to what we call to make new land. The polder. They pump the water and they put in sand. And then you have a new land. Another example to use the water can be also building, but can be as well amenities. This is one of the collages we made to say, okay, let's put some micro pavilion. I like this one as well. It's a water flow area. It's the same. It's the same. Can we say? We're not really able to build in this part, but we can do it if we think about it. If we lift the living place and we free up a big space on the ground. Addition. Why addition? Because I get the feeling, I have a lot of Parisian examples, sorry, but I get the feeling that along the river, it's not enough use. It's a nice address. It's the water. Everyone wants to live close to the water, and we don't give it too much. We don't give it to enough people. You know, then it gets really expensive to live along the water. Then it's only rich people who can live along the water. But if we put more square meters, so the offer get bigger, then the price get lower, and more people can live along the water. So it's nice. Also around the park. This is something like we did as well in the Grand Paris. It was also a strategy to attract people in the suburb, because you should know in Ile-de-France, everyone wants to live in Paris. Paris is a small spot of 2 million inhabitants. And then you have the Greater Paris, that is 12 million inhabitants. So basically 10 million inhabitants are living in the suburb. And we say suburb, it's cool as well. I like suburb because you have a lot of park. Yeah, I don't mind to live in the suburb if I have this, if I have a view on the park. So one of the collage before and after. You don't see really the difference, but okay. Around. Lacaton Vassal, good architect. They took this building on the left, and they was social housing. And the idea was to make a rehabilitation of this building, but still for social housing. And what Lacaton and Vassal say, we say, okay, we're going to make social housing, but I don't want to put the same windows. I don't want to have these little windows. I want to have big windows. I want to have big windows in the bedroom, in the bathroom. And I want to have terraces for those people, because on the left, there is no terraces. Another one, it's in industrial area. It's what we call a fro-silo. We get the commission, we get this as a site. We get those 2 silos, and the client asks us to build inside, to put apartment inside. We say, okay, let's do it. But first, we made a study of the structure. And the maximum of perforations that we could make into those silos was 10%. And then you say, no, we cannot make apartment with tiny windows. You know, look like jails. It's not good. So we decide to build around it and to use this silo as the main structure for the rest of the building. Other collage as well, bad suburb. And we have to think, like making maybe new skin to the building, to the whole building. You know, we have to work on the facade to give more air, to give more space, to give more outdoor space. I like this one. It's a competition I did. It's Buenos Aires. It was a boat, an existing boat, and this boat was the museum. Was a museum. And the program was to make an extension of this museum. And the idea was like, okay, it's funny, but why to make a museum close to an old museum? So we say, okay, we have the new, we have the old, and we merge it together. So basically, we decide to take the boat as a piece, as the main piece of the museum. And then we cover it, and we dig. and we dig, then the boat, you see from top, from facade, back facade, is still visible. So now I have one picture, I see the boat. See the boat as well. So its idea is like old and new can be combined as well. In between, there's a lot of gap in cities. A good example of Sana in Tokyo, in between two buildings, it's not the worst. Huh? I would love to live in this house. It's really nice. You have a lot of air, a lot of light, a lot of green, and this was built in the no man's land in between two buildings. What we call dent creuse, it's when you miss a teeth in French. It's like this one in between two buildings. We can fill those gaps. So I told you there is space in Paris because when I was showing this example, I have much more, but I couldn't show all of them. But when you show this to politicians, they tell you there is no space, and when you show all the space you have in Paris, you can continue the urban tissue. They understand what you mean by there is space in Paris. Indoor. Oh, this is the. I put 2007 start and finish in 2014. So this is the cover market that we just finished in Rotterdam. And I like the idea because in my French culture, when you have a cover market, it's a market covered with a roof. But in Dutch culture, apparently, when they do a market, they cover it with another program. So then they use this space for housing and a market underneath. Like this school of Delft, the school of architecture, because you know the school of Delft burned like 2007, I think, 8. And there were no time to make a new building, so it was really like really urgent to find space for this architecture students. And we found a building, but what was missing in this building was missing a main central space where all the students can meet, was missing the amphitheater. So what we did, we just cover and we make a tribune in the courtyard of this building. So basically, this is the catalog of strategy. There's 3 more strategies, but I think we should make a break now. So let's have a break. So I know what to do. For the next lecture, I will try to put more celebrities in the PowerPoint. And I thought it was quite good reactions. It's good idea, thank you. Let's continue on the strategy. Back to architecture. More comfortable. What will be the strategy to give more comfort? It's all about this. It's about sustainability, climate, autonomous, landscape, being calm and sunny. Sustainability, in the same process, I try to show examples, the examples that I think could be good for projects. There's this one from a project XX, from XX Architect. It was really funny. It decided to make a building that the entire building can go to the trash. So even the pipe are made in cardboard. So basically you can recycle all the building. You have this like more upcycling process to use these wooden pallets that you use in the industry. About climate, it's again the building of La Caton Vassal, you know, the one with the new skin. What they decide to do is to add a new buffer between the apartment and outside. It's not the room. It's about 12 degrees, so it's not so warm, but can be used as winter garden. And they made this kind of thermical curtains So by doing this, they afford to basically to have to optimize the light entry in the building because they maximize the size of the windows. You can see almost all the facades are glass. A project in Bordeaux. This was a master plan, and we had one rule for this project. We say light for everyone from ground floor to top floor in summer and in winter. So basically what we did, we look at the available space on the site, we start extruding the building, and then we cut. We cut following two rules, the sun, and the light and the direct sun. And by doing this, the mayor of Bordeaux really liked the idea because communication was really clear. We say, okay, light for everyone, also for ground floor, because what's happened usually in France, we're thinking that ground floor is useless because no one wants to live on the ground floor. But I think it's a nice spot if you live on the ground floor, but you need light. So basically in this plan, there is no shadows on the facade of any buildings. Autonomous. This is a good map. I like this map because it shows that food is traveling much more than us. So basically, how can we make the more local? You know, do we really need to eat bananas and drink coffee every day? Because the CO2, it's bad for CO2. You know, like we use a lot of CO2 for it, just to eat a banana. So we start seeing like in Montreal this urban agriculture on the roof. I think it's quite good as well to use this spot and to develop and to use it to produce food. Crazy project in Barcelona about the urban farm. So basically, was a research project from the Y Factory, saying, okay, what if we want to be more local for the full city of Barcelona? It's the same. Like you should put, and you can do it to make the food more local with this urban farm. We start seeing it anyway. This is quite extreme, indeed. But nowadays, it's becoming more fashion. But we have restaurants having their own agriculture on the roof. So now the restaurant become more local as well. This is a good example in Douala, because you have the mousson season, like it's raining in a really short time, and the rest of the year it's super dry. So the water, it's really precious. And you had this architect, he designed a building that open up when it's raining in a way to collect the maximum of water, and then they're storing this water for later on when it's dry. So this is also a fact that architecture, the shape of architecture can be useful following the constraint of every city, every country. Also, this one was the Dutch pavilion in Hanovre in 2000, but this building was self-sufficient in a way. But in 2000 was quite spectacular. Now maybe it's more common to see like windmills on the roof of building, but at this time was quite new, so was already a step further. Something useful can also be beautiful as well. Another project from the Y Factory about these solar water lilies. Can you imagine this landscape of big energy machine, really, really clean? Or also these PV cells, but can be used as pergola. You know, basically the idea behind this picture is how to integrate the new technology into the project. into beauty. Back to Haussmann. Alors, we didn't put a new floor of program, but we put a sea of PV cells, of solar panels on top of Haussmann. I can tell you this helps a lot because can give the energy that Paris need only with these solar panels. So then another energy more like windmills. And this is also a picture along the Seine in Paris. And we can imagine that it's changing as well. It can change the landscape. Can we imagine this kind of windmills factories as well? Okay, maybe it's more extreme, but it's in a way to bring the maximum of clean energy. And this is really an interesting document because it shows basically the size you need to produce clean energy. So you have the one in the middle, it's like nuclear energy. Of course, you don't need so much space, you just need the factory. But we try to change it. Like, this is the second one, it's about solar panels. And you see that it's almost the size of Paris. So basically, just putting a sea of solar panels on all the roof in Paris, Paris became more self-sufficient in terms of energy. And then you have water, wind, and biomass. Landscape. Gem Wine, again in Mumbai. This is good because we talk about density, but we should bring quality as well. You know, people like to be outside. People want outdoor space. People want garden, want nice landscape. And this, you can find, if you look around, you can find some example like this one in Paris, from a building from Gazo. It's quite impressive because you have this really simple building, and the roof, it's like a nice terrace, actually. So it's dense, but you have a good space. This project of Edouard François, who made this kind of green balconies. So basically, you can live in a collective building, but have the feeling to have your little garden, secret garden. Or maybe a bigger scale, green towers in China. Or in Barcelona, I like it because with the client, we had the client and the city hall. And the client wanted to make a commercial center. He wanted to make the cheapest commercial center. He said, I have my plot. Let's make a flat building, simple roof, tack. And then the mayor came, and the mayor said, okay, in this spot, I want a garden. So those two guys discuss, and then they get into an agreement that we can make a building and a garden. And this is what we did. We make this pine trees forest, on top of a commercial center. So basically, in one place, you can have several functions. You can have a layer. You can have several layers. Layers of building, layers of landscape. Also in Montenegro, or to integrate, this is a project was like, the nature was really precious. And how can we integrate a new program in this nature? So basically, it's like kind of spy. No one wants to see you. Calm. This is also an example about looking at the typology. We did a project in La Haye, we call it Pasture Island. It's really interesting because we have a really high density in this plot, but the buildings are not so high. And we have this kind of courtyard for everyone. And the interesting part of it, it's no one can see in your garden. So you can have completely glass wall, something completely naked as well in your garden. The neighbor won't never see you. And Sunny, but this is I already talked about it, about Bordeaux. But you see the section, now maybe you understand better. But it's really like we cut all the building with this angle of 22 degrees to get light until the ground floor. Another building, it's a big monster. It's coming in Paris from Herzog et de Meuron. We call it the Triangle. But this, anyway, was smart because it's tall building, you have density, but it was designed in a way that doesn't give any shadows to the surrounding, just to the roof of the commercial center close by. So this is also an idea. You say, okay, density is not bad because this doesn't disturb the rest of the city, it doesn't bring shadows. This is about comfort. Again. Sorry. Diversity. Or this, you know, this is, you know already, I don't want to teach you this, but it's a mixity of program of type and population. Everyone knows that it's really needed, but it's good to talk about it anyway, and to show some references. And we have this one in Amsterdam, the Silo Dam. And basically the idea on this project was to make a research on different typologies of housing that can fit to a large ranking of people, from family, from single, from retired couples, from extra large families. And then was made also for different social classes. We have 20% of this building, it's for social housing. So in a way, it's quite fair, a building that has a certain diversity. So like you can see the different flats. Also on the urban planning, I like this idea, like on a plot, to have different typologies, because fit with different type of people. Edouard François. This is quite funny, but he as well is the same, you know. He mixed social housing with individual housing. So basically you can buy the one on top and rent the one underneath. And okay, why not? Cover Market as well, to build on top of the Market Square. Celiosa in Madrid was the same idea, was to have a building, all this apartment, but instead of making a block, to open up a bit more in some part in order to get some more collective space. You know, space that you can use when you welcome your friend, when you want to do a barbecue. So this type of space are really needed also in architecture. Increase the quality of life, no? Or this one as well in Vienna. Well, it's also like we can reach a certain diversity in this. More. And more. Madrid. And back to this one. This one for James Wine, and this I really like it. In this example, I'm not sure if it's working. I'm not sure if everyone has a lot of light, but the idea behind it, it's really good. It's like we bring people together and we give the quality of the individual housing. I think this is something that we should keep in mind. Our first project in France was the monolith in Lyon. And this was mixing everyone and everything. Basically, the programmation, it's about retails, offices, and housing. And then we decide to mix the building with different architects. So you see every part, every color, it's an architect. And then we decide in the housing to give a part, we decide, the client decide, but I think it was a good idea, but to have a part for social and for apartments that you can sell. And in the middle, in this part, you don't see really well, but it's you have an interior courtyard that it's open to public as well. A competition I did in Copenhagen. It was interesting because we're always talking about building, and sometimes we forget about the public space. The sidewalk. I never understand why in the street, in the sidewalk, there is no benches, there is no table. Why the city doesn't want me to stop in the public space? Okay, there's some part, there's some place for it, there's some park. Cities, okay, go to the park, it's fine. But sometimes I want to go down from my place to sit on a chair, a bench, and to have a small table and to do something there. So in Copenhagen, we took the same idea. Like you have already decided in Copenhagen, but inside the courtyard, that all the courtyard in Copenhagen are really used, but it's private. I wanted to bring the idea of the Danish courtyard outside to make it more public. So we see on this map a certain series of color, and we call it in this place. Sometimes it gets larger, so it became a micro plaza. And in this micro plaza, we should bring social activators, to activate the public space, and people can use it. So then we did this collection, and you can see for some of them, we say, okay, let's imagine that one micro plaza, it's the extension of the kitchen. It's for cooking. And you can have a big barbecue, collective barbecue, so finally you can have a barbecue with your neighbor. You have another one here, like it's amphitheater. Why you don't have this type of place in the street? Maybe with a better weather, we could have done the workshop outside. This is good. One, it's more like the garden, like urban garden. We have this, but we should improve it as well. We should make more of these urban gardens, and you grow your own potatoes. And then you cross the street and you go to the kitchen. Although this one was like a kind of an extension of the living room as well. Maybe you don't have enough space in your apartment, so bring your friend there and have a good party. Why not? Or this one for open-air cinema. Can you imagine? So basically it's like, or this one for sport, or this roundabout when you have cars, that one moment turn into a stage for concert once in a while. So I think it's really important to think about building and the activities that we have inside the building, but also about the public space, how to activate the public space. Another project, it was a bridge in Amsterdam, and the brief was quite simple. When you do a bridge, you have to go from a point A to point B. And often it's quite boring because it's made by engineers. So they say, okay, structurally, tack, I make this, up, now you can cross, that's all. But it's a lot of money just to cross, so better to, if you have to spend money to make a bridge, better to give a function to this bridge. And at this time we say, okay, let's imagine that the bridge, it's also an icon. It's an icon for the city. I don't know, it was Amsterdam and Netherlands, so we thought about tulip. I think tulip is the icon of the city, and let's give function to it. And for instance, you can see that this tulip, it's like a flower. It can open up in some part. So in some part, it's a bridge with several entries. In summer, some of the petals can go in the water, and it become like a kind of beach. Or some of them like for open-air cinema, or for a show, or maybe for an extension of the museum, because it was in front of the Hermitage. So basically you can imagine like you have outdoor exhibition, or maybe to close it, and it became a club. Super private, you don't disturb the neighbor. So the idea behind it, it's also to mixity. It's about mixity of program. Like every time you do something, try to find the way how it can be useful for someone else, or to make it more public. The last part, it's about adaptability. Alors, this is important topic because nowadays, especially architects, we won't get so much occasion to make new building, because we have already a big collection of building, and more we try to reuse the existing building and to improve them. So basically, in the way to have building more adaptable, we have to think from the beginning how to make this building more adaptable. And one of them is not new. It's the free plan. But it's important to, when you design offices, for instance, you have to keep in mind that these offices, maybe in many years, will become housing. Bye-bye. I'm so boring, no? No, see you. So basically, it's like when you design the plan, think a bit where you put the shaft. Think a bit when you put the core. Because if you don't think about it, maybe it will be hard in the future to change the programmation. Also, like the silo dam, what we did in this building, all the technique, all the pipes, everything, it's along the wall, along this wall. So basically, if you want, and actually I met people living there, they really like it, you can just break down a small wall and make a new one if you want. If you need a new room, you just add an extra wall. You know this small one, it's 5 centimeters thick, doesn't cost anything. More special, like Non-Stop City, it's from Archisum in 1970. Basically was really the idea to say even the cities can work in the same way. Like all you need for the cities, it's into this kind of axis, and you come and you plug to it, and then the rest it's more free. This is an example. It's a project that we are finishing in Paris. We wanted to show to the client, like he's doing a good investment to work with us. Because we say, now you will get some money today, but in the future you can get even more money because the building that we're doing today, it can be reversible. Nice. So he asked me to do offices. I say, okay, today you do offices, but tomorrow can be housing. And by showing this plan, I say, okay, nowadays you have the offices, so you see the core and the lift. And I said, it can turn into housing for students. It can turn into a collection of studios. Then, in the future, it can turn into also different apartments. Have different sizes of apartment. Even this apartment, you can have even bigger apartment. So basically, I give to the client the possibility to change the building when you want and when it's needed. What we call the neutral plan. This is also to bring more flexibility in architecture inside the building. It's basically if you start designing a project where every room has the same size, then you can say, okay, one moment this room can be a living room. Maybe you take 2 cells if you want a big living room, but 1 cell can be as well a kitchen, a bedroom, a bathroom, and this it's working. But you have to think that every rooms need a water connection. Then you can, if you're tired of your place, you bought a place, if you're tired of this place in 5 years, you say, now I want to move my bathroom in this part, you can still do it. So you have more flexibility also inside the apartment. The Family Minister de Guise was also working in the same way. In a way, like every room has the same size. It's quite funny because you can buy or sell one room of your apartment to your neighbor. So basically, you don't move anymore away. You move in your own place. I think this is quite a good idea because when you start living, when you start having an apartment, you don't have so much money. You're a student and you don't need so much space. But then the family grows, and then you need more space, and you need room for kids. And I think it's quite bad that you have some district made for students, other made for family, other made for retired people. But I think if your family grow, your apartment should grow as well. It's the best way to have a better mixity of people, of population. Also, this example of Les Marelles, you see the plan is quite clear. And you see on the left, option 1, and on the right, option 2. So by having the same structure the same facade, you can have a different organization inside. Furnished plan. Alors, this good example of Jean Prouvé, he had a big furniture in the middle of the place, and you have everything. Kitchen, shower, connection, everything is there. This apartment in Barcelona, I don't know if you saw it, it's a really tiny apartment. The guy had no money, because it's really expensive already to buy in Barcelona. He had no money to build. So what he did the most compact place ever. And basically you see that the bed can move under the terrace. He pull a door, then you have the kitchen. He push there, then you have the bathroom, toilet. This is good as well. When you don't have money, you can make a compact place, and following the time of the day, the use of this space is different. Sometimes became a bedroom, then a bathroom, then a kitchen. Also another example of David Elalouf. So you see, like, you can take the office. Adaptable plan. Alors, this is also a nice example from Rietveld. Basically, he has the possibility to close all the rooms in this place, or to open all of them to make one big space, one big common space. Because he's right, during the day you don't use the bedroom, so maybe it's good to give some square meters of the bedroom to the living room during the day when you need it. Also, Borro did the same thing. Spanish project. I get the feeling that in Spain there's no space, so they're really making this compact project, but it's, you can see here, it's like during the day, it's one big living room, so they enjoy really the space and the light. All the beds of the kids are under the desk, and during the night, they just close in. This is the hotel in Amsterdam. I think it's quite good because often, depending on the budget, of course, but often when you go to the hotel, you have a small room and a small bathroom. And in Amsterdam, you can have both. You can have a big room and big bathroom, because when you don't need it, the bathroom, like this case, the surface of the bathroom below to the bedroom. When you need to have a shower, you just open this wall, and then this is your bathroom. So one day I tried to make a competition in combining these different elements. And the idea was like, okay, we have the existing plan. What we did on this building was a building in München. We say, okay, let's get rid of all the walls that are not structural. So let's clean up the space. Then we act on the structure to free up the plan, to have the maximum of possibilities in the future to use the space. Then we put this kind of grid to say, okay, as well, let's base our own design, having in mind that the kitchen, maybe in the future, is not anymore the kitchen, but became the bedroom or the bathroom. And then we integrate all the furniture inside the wall. So this is the plan. So we have kind of good possibility, because somehow you can design a big collection of apartments. You can have 6 cells, and you have the square apartment, you can have the T apartment, you can have the L apartment. And this can change. So when you show this to a developer, maybe thinking today you need a lot of families apartment because it's needed, but maybe tomorrow you just need retired apartment or studio. You need small apartments, so then give more flexibility in changing. So this is what I try to explain. Like if I take the L apartment, by opening up everything, all the walls, during the day, the full size of the apartment is your living room. But then one moment when you need to use the shower, but then you have the bedroom, the shower, and the living room. And when no one is using the bathroom, but you can have a big bedroom and a big living room as well. I like the dog as well. So this is the idea. What I show you before, it's a picture made somewhere there. We're looking at the... So basically, I like the idea because in the bathroom, I can have a piano. It's nice. I don't know. Take a shower, your boyfriend playing piano. It's wonderful. It's really romantic, no? So then you have big space. And during the day, you close everything and then you have your big living room. This, no? I put a naked girl and everyone like it. Yeah. Common plan. This is also in building. I think it's good when you have when you make collective building to think also about a space when people can meet. We have this in Mirador, but we make these big panorama terraces and everyone can go. We have this in Amsterdam in Parkrun. We have a playground for kids inside the shape of the building. Another picture. Cohabitation. This is quite good because also we don't have space. So basically we have to be smart in the way we design the apartment. And of course we have to adapt our design to the new way of living of people, because nowadays, to be honest, it's really hard to have a big apartment on your own. You have to share. No, often people share apartment to have space. And what I like in this one, for the 1+1, bye-bye. It's everyone. You can imagine, like, you can share an apartment with your friend, but doesn't mean that you have to spend all your time with your friend, because sometimes you want a bit of privacy and sometimes not. So imagine an apartment where everyone has his own door, own key, and his own in their own space there. And when you want to use the kitchen or the bathroom or the living room, you can go in the yellow part. And this is the common area. So basically, instead of having 2 times 2 bathroom, 2 times 2 living room, and 2 times 2 kitchen, you can share those 2 and have you one time private space. This is a good one from Ondelat Laporte. It was a commission, like the family. It was recomposed family, so everyone get kids. And then they met and they bring all the kids together, but one of the kids was a bit old. He wanted to have more independency. So for this, they made an extra room a bit outside to the family. So then this kid that he was like 17, 18, he was feeling more independent, but still living to the parents' place. But then what is good behind this, it's when the kid will move to another city or will move to his wife somewhere, the parents can rent this space as a studio as well. So you know you have a certain flexibility in the time of your own apartment. Like this one, it's an apartment. You have 2 doors. So you can use this room for your own use, but if you don't need this space, you can rent it as well. And this is good for cohabitation when you think about it. Then you can say, okay, retired people can live with students, you know? So they're not alone. And students can take care of them. And then they get maybe a bigger space. So that's why the strategy for to make the city more adaptable. So I try to make it short, but it's basically the conclusion. It's we talk about quality of life. We know that to have a better quality of life, we have to develop strategy. And strategy is not to make the city bigger. We don't need urban sprawl. We have to make it more, let's say, compact, because it's more intense. You bring the activities closer, you bring the amenities closer, you bring people closer, and you bring everything closer. So that's all.
Bertrand, thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Are there any questions? I can't see any hands. Is it too late already?
I can add something. Maybe I hope to see you all at the party tonight because the workshop is doing a party. So the place will be at Pro Cultura, and I know it's a bit late, but if you want, we can go there, have a beer, and we can discuss if it's needed as well.
Is that a good idea for everyone? Yes? Okay. Well, I will not keep you very long. I just want to say one more time a big, big thank you. Thank you.